Greetings and welcome to Beatles Stuffology, where two old friends sit around and talk BS, Beatles stuff, on a track-by-track basis pretty much for the sake of it. My name is JG McQuarrie and I'm here with my co-host Andrew Deacon. Say hi, Andrew.
Hello.
Hello, how are you this week?
I'm pretty good, and I think pretty good because we've got a good opening to the second album here. So it should hopefully be an uplifting, positive, harmonious discussion.
Well, that's very much what we would like to hope for. So yes, let's get stuck straight into it. That means this week we are talking about It Won't Be Long, the opening song on With the Beatles. I think you've kind of given the game away there as to what you might think of.
Yeah.
If you'd like to give us a quick summary anyway, how are you finding this one?
I just think it's quite similar to the opening to the first album, which... Oh, I saw her standing. Do you know what? I had a moment where my mind went blank. I saw her standing there. It's almost like they've decided to replicate that moment at the start of a set where they grab an audience's attention, and it does the same thing in a sense that, you know, for a couple of minutes it really grabs the listener, shakes them up a bit, and then puts them down and says, right, you've started now. You're in a good place. We can go on. And I think it also is interesting because it sort of shows not just more of the same, if you like, but some development as well. There's something a bit clever about this in the way that some of the self-penned songs on the first album maybe are slightly lacking.
Yeah, I would go along with that. I think it's interesting because it's a very, very simple song in terms of its chords, in terms of the way that it's kind of put together. It's very... Yeah, it's really straightforward. There's three minor chords, a couple of sevenths, and everything else is pretty much major. It's a really simple song that uses its simplicity in a kind of very effective way. It's got that punchiness to it. It's got a lot of energy to it. It just has a real sense of momentum to it, I suppose. It's one of those songs that I think it's also very easy to forget about. I think in sort of overall in the Beatles' back catalogue, I don't know how celebrated It Won't Be Long is. Not much, I think. It was never really a live number. It's never really one which comes up. It's not a single, but it's a bloody good album opener. And so I think it tends to be a little bit sort of neglected. I don't think it gets an awful lot of attention, but it does deserve it. It's a really, really strong piece of work.
There are quite a few covers, but all of the covers really are just... replicas rather than doing something original with it. So lots of people who have done lots of Beatles covers albums that have included it, and they sound very, very familiar. In fact, there was a film a few years ago called Across the Universe, which I've not seen. I only know this from our good friend Mr. Google, and that includes a cover of it, female singer Evan Rachel Wood, and it just sounds the same, but with a female voice. They even sort of go for the call and response is the same on all of these. The best one I've heard was Richard Thompson doing a cover, and which is fun. There's a slightly different guitar lick on parts of it, but I think the main reason why that stands out is purely because he's got a different voice. He's got a different way of intonating, and it just sounds like a singer who knows what they're doing and has their own way of expressing it. Otherwise, people just seem to be in awe of the original and just think, well, okay, I'm going to do it, but I'm just going to basically it seems a bit pointless as well. If you're going to do it, why do it exactly the same way as the Beatles did it? Because you're not going to do it better.
No, that's true, but it's not a song which I think necessarily lends itself to all that much interpretation. Again, it's pretty, it's got a 4-square beat, it's got, pretty simple chord structure. There's I don't know, you could give it a cha-cha beat if you think that's going to help anything, but I'm not really certain that that's going to be the way forward for it. So yeah, I do think it's one that's maybe not the easiest one to find. Kind of, I couldn't imagine the trend to put kind of very minor, mordant cover versions on the opening of movies to try and make things sound like they're profound. Like, I couldn't imagine you could really do that with this song. It's not one that lends itself necessarily to those kind of interpretations. It's interesting what you were saying before, actually, about this, this being such a good album opener and sort of replicating what happened on Please Please Me, as which is to say I Saw Her Standing There as the opener, because obviously I Saw Her Standing There is none more McCartney-esque as a song, and here we have a song which could not be more Lennon, yet they're fulfilling precisely the same function and pretty much in precisely the same way.
Well, yeah, and there is that sense of telling a little narrative about two people getting together. But of course, McCartney on "I Saw Her Standing There" tells a little vignette about something that happens on a particular day at a particular dance. Whereas this is very much in the Lennon oeuvre of I'll get you, I will get you, you'll come back, don't worry, it won't be long until I belong. Even the "I belong to you" bit. I mean, it sounds like it's a case of he's being a bit sort of magnanimous, but it's still that creepy sort of sense of you will be mine at some point. There's no escape.
Yeah, well, it's still possessive. It doesn't matter whether it's a man possessing a woman or a woman possessing a man. It's still that angle of possessiveness. I will belong.
It's the pitiful sense as well. Since you left me, I'm so alone. I'm so alone without you. Poor me. I think, right, okay. John. But then that's where it's best just not to listen to the lyrics too closely and just to sort of let them wash over you and think, actually, it's quite a good vocal performance for Lennon. And that's damning with faint praise, isn't it? It feels like it means something to him, and that makes a difference. I just have a quibble. My quibble with the lyrics is not to do with the "here am I sitting all on my own" kind of stuff, and every night the tears come down from my eye. Actually, I have a bit of a problem with a missed opportunity, because every single time, I'll start with the chorus, which is great. Maybe we could come back to that, but then we go into "every night when everybody has fun. Here am I sitting all on my," and then we go to "own." Sitting all on my own. Why is he not rhyming fun with bum? That's what I want to know. I think it works. Every night when everybody has fun, here am I sitting all on my bum. I think it works so much better.
There's no way George Martin would have let that pass.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, come on. It's missed opportunity. I just, every time I think Lennon's going to have a bit of a joke here, because that's the kind of guy that Lennon is. But, shame. He wants to be serious and maybe try a bit of poetry.
I think serious might be a bit of a stretch here.
Yeah. We're going for. I mean, it's not even a half rhyme, is it? But
no, it's just a different word.
Well, yeah, it's just wrong.
Yeah, it's just wrong. And nothing would have made this song more Lennon-esque than having the word "bum" in it.
Yeah. However, to go back to the other point, starting with the chorus is actually quite a Beatlesy thing to do in this period, isn't it? It's that why not hit them with the best part of the song, just to really grab the audience and go, yep, that's fine, I like it. It doesn't matter what follows, because we open with the chorus and we end with the chorus actually means you get more of the best part of the song throughout the song, rather than, because a lot of seemingly traditional song structure over the last 30 years might have had verse, chorus, verse, chorus. Well, okay, right, well, you've got more verse there than chorus, but by definition, the chorus should be the catchiest part, the part that's the most interesting, the part that you build up to. There's no building up to here. Straight in, absolutely, job done.
Well, there's no question that it's the most catchy part of this song. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And particularly if you compare it to "She Loves You," which does precisely the same thing. It kicks off with the big, impactful kind of chorus, and then leads straight into the verse. Yeah, you're right. I mean, particularly in this phase, that's a very kind of Beatlesy thing to do. It's a way of grabbing the listener and making sure that they're not going to escape the song. Fortunately for this song, it's a bloody good hook as well. The call and response thing is such a, I mean, it's such a time-worn way of putting a song together, but it works, and you can hear the enthusiasm in the vocal performances as well. I think it's really clear that they're enjoying doing this. I find it in a way kind of curious that this never really became a live song, because you would think it would kind of be a great way of I mean, maybe at this stage they had enough material and enough screaming going on that they didn't need to draw the audience in that way. But still, you would think it would be a good way of, energizing them. A good kind of early set kind of song, like maybe 2 or 3 numbers in, keeping the energy going.
Yeah.
And I find it odd that it's like I would say before, it's kind of neglected in the Beatles back catalogue, but it's neglected by them as well.
Yeah, but then a lot of the most popular songs on the set list tended to be, the covers of the songs that they liked. I mean, it is odd. I mean, if the internet would have you believe that it was never played in a live set, only on an episode of Ready Steady Go. For those people that don't know, it was a TV program in the 1960s, and I find that surprising. Yeah, but they had so many songs that they just kind of pushed out. And I wonder also if it reflects maybe the way in which the album was recorded, because even though it wasn't done in as monumentally a quick fashion as the first one, it's still very quick by any normal standards. And as you're heading into second album territory, there's the old cliche, isn't there, that you've been honing all of these songs on the first album for a long period of time, and then suddenly the record company turns around and says, "Hey, we need another one, guys. What have you got?" So you're knocking off some in a hurry, and if they've knocked this off in a hurry, and they've knocked it off in a hurry so much so that they've not had a chance to embed it into the live set, they've still done pretty well with it. But then I quite like the fact that it sort of exists in aspic, as it were, that there aren't live performances for you to listen to. Okay, so you could go on, Anthology and find versions. I'm sure there's all sorts of mixes along the line that you could have a listen to. But otherwise, it just exists in this format, a one-off, and a one-off that is so much better than an awful lot of other bands' songs at the time. And for me, it's sort of like an endearing reminder of just how good these young chaps from Liverpool actually were.
I think endearing is a very nice word to describe this song. I think that's exactly what it is. It's rather charming. It's terribly nice. And you mentioned in terms of the album and in terms of the speed in which things got written. I mean, it's worth. I'm sure everybody knows, of course, but it's worth saying. This is their second album in 1963, and for all, like you say, this wasn't recorded in a massive or as massive a hurry. It's still, by contemporary standards, absurdly quick, and to try and turn that around in that sort of time is an incredible achievement. It's good quality material for the amount of time that would have got put into it. This will not necessarily be the story of this album going forward. I think it's fair to say this is neither my favorite Beatles album nor not by some distance, nor do I think it's really as good as probably Please Please Me is. But it starts well. This is where we start. It's got everything that you need to do. And I mean, apparently this took 27 takes, which seems like a lot for a song of this caliber. It doesn't. I mean, it's going to sound harsher than I mean it to, but it doesn't sound like a song that really sounds like it needs 27 takes. That's slightly hard to justify, but it works. I mean, there's no doubt that the end result is effective. So yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it does.
But it does feel like this is a bridge between the first album and then what's going to be coming up with, say, A Hard Day's Night. You sort of feel like they have to go through the process of this and All I Want to Do and All My Loving and even if you like I Want to Be Your Man, to get to where they end up. That this is them developing. Oh God, it sounds so cliche, doesn't it? Developing their craft and extending their repertoire, whatever. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Because without that, do you get to A Hard Day's Night and I Feel Fine and and that sort of thing. And it's not that far on before we get to Can't Buy Me Love. It's just weird how condensed the timeline is, and we'll just keep coming back to that as well, won't we? How condensed the Beatles timeline is, and the fact that we're now what we're late '63. It's almost equidistance between them starting and them ending. If you
Yeah.
sort of go back to when the boys originally met, it's not that far off. The midpoint in their collaborative creative life, and yet think about everything that's still in front of them. So it's just kind of like an amazing little snapshot of where they are, and a reminder of what they're going to go on and do, the maturity that's going to come reasonably soon as well, the lyrical changes that will come reasonably soon. But you can see why as well. That Lennon fairly soon, in a couple of years, gets bored and just starts taking things out of newspapers and off posters, because there are only certain ways in which you can say, you will be mine, I will be yours. Ooh. So yeah, there was a point lost in there somewhere. I have no idea what it was, but basically, nice song, yay.
Great.
Yeah.
we can look back right to that. That's not a problem. I mean, the other thing about this album is as well. I'm not going to talk too long about the album because we'll have our album thing at the far end of talking about all these songs. But of the 14 songs which are on this album, 6 of them are covers and 1 of them is a Harrison song. So half the album isn't Lennon-McCartney, which is a pretty high proportion. I want to say the highest of any Beatles album, but I don't have the track listing for Please Please Me in front of me to confirm that. But it's a big chunk, which simply isn't standard Lennon-McCartney stuff. And I don't think that this album holds the greatest covers, with one exception. Well, maybe with 2 exceptions. It's one of the reasons I think this album struggles a little bit, because it's very scattershot. But like you mentioned, there is a real sense of development. That call and response on "It Won't Be Long" isn't something that has existed on any previous Beatles song. There have been hooks, there have been moments where the audience can get involved and sing along and all that kind of stuff. Of course they have. But just something as simple as that is a new thing that has been included here. It's a new string to their bow. Yeah, let's say that. It's a new string to their bow.
I was just having a quick check of Beatles for Sale. There's 6 covers on Beatles for Sale, which is not a great album, but we'll be onto that in a few months' time. Yeah. Beatles for Sale. Suddenly, this project, you sort of think that it's always that sense of progress that certainly up to say maybe 67. The Beatles are forever getting better and better and better, but there'll be dips.
Yeah, it's all progress, but it's not necessarily all linear progress.
Yeah.
That's the best way I could think to say it.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing about this is that I suppose with It Won't Be Long, if you start to over-analyse it, you can then start to see flaws in it. Whereas actually, if you just let it wash over you, it's a pretty impressive piece of work. So there's something, for example, about that guitar riff, that sort of descending guitar riff, that's used quite a lot, that actually could be quite irritating after a while. If you sort of separate that out and go, oh yeah, let's analyse some of the musicianship on here, and you just think, I'd rather not actually. That it just okay, that's fine. It actually reminds me of the jingle that SNCF uses at French railway stations, and that's not a good link that you really want to have.
Lovely. There's a link I'd never considered before. You heard it here first. No, but I mean, you're not wrong. One of the interesting things about it is that I think. And I think this is kind of also what I meant by how it struggles to justify 27 takes. Is it kind of sounds like it's just recorded straight, like it's just recorded live, and in particular that riff. There's a couple of times through it, you can hear that George Harrison is slightly struggling a bit to get his fingers around it. And if you've done it 27 times, you're probably sick to the back teeth of playing the bloody thing. But all the same, it's still it still makes it sound like it was, as live as much as, Please Please Me was recorded. And yet it's not. There was, a lot of time put into trying to get this to sound the way that they presumably wanted it to sound. Now, whether that came from them, whether that came from George Martin, I don't know. But it's a lot of effort for something which is audibly sloppy, and yet that kind of audible sloppiness kind of is why it's endearing. It's that's part of its charm. It's not absolutely perfect. It is a little bit loosey goosey. It's got a bit of it's got a little bit of space and a little bit of whatever to it, and that's one of the things that makes it work.
Yeah, definitely. By the way, a little bit of background on the film. Have you ever heard of this film, Across the Universe?
I've heard the name. I also haven't seen it at all. No.
No, jukebox musical romantic drama centered on songs by the English rock band the Beatles. Well, okay, there's few things wrong with that. Now, the script is based on an original story credited to, amongst others, Dick Clement and Ian LaFrenne.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think I'd heard of this, but the giveaway is perhaps why. Budget 71 million, box office 30 million. So there's tons of Beatles songs listed in it as well, which is really interesting, but not one that I'm gonna dig out. It doesn't look like it's a disaster of a film when it comes to the reviews, but yeah, Roger Ebert seemed to like it.
Yeah, Ebert can be hit and miss though. That's not
Yeah.
necessarily a guarantee of anything. Interestingly, I had no real memory of this film until you mentioned it there. But Hasty Bing has brought up the movie poster, and I remember that poster for some reason because it's really, really terrible. Sort of faintly strawberry shaped sort of splodge.
Yeah,
it's not good.
I do.
For some reason, that's clearly stuck in my head.
There are going to be lots of things like that. Cultural appropriations of Beatles work that I just sort of haven't paid attention to. Maybe it just wasn't particularly interested in it at the time. So it's a little bit like I've seen some of Yesterday, for example, but not all of it. Nowhere Boy, something that's passed me by. And there's lots of things like that. I think Backbeat I watched once and quite enjoyed it, but no particular desire to go back to it. I think I'm just long past the stage of being interested in collecting all of the cultural items that go with these things. So, I'm not going to buy loads of Beatles books and start reading up on it. Which I suppose could be a slight flaw in this project, because you might think that maybe we should be doing masses and masses of research. But I quite like the idea of just coming to the songs as songs and then going away and looking some stuff up and thinking, trying to work out whether or not our view of it matches what some other people have said.
I am going out of my way to do the most perfunctory research possible for this project. Really not overstretching myself on the old digging into stuff, but for the same reason. I think it's kind of more interesting to just react to stuff, especially stuff. A lot of this early stuff I'm fairly distant from. It's been a while since I've listened to a lot of this material.
Yeah.
The kind of later stuff, the big kind of totemic albums, okay, fair enough, but a lot of this earlier stuff isn't stuff that I listen to all that often, so it's quite nice to come back to it fresh and kind of try and find an opinion on it without just trotting out the same kind of lazy cliches or the same, like trite expressions around whatever. So I wholly commend you for not really doing any research.
Well, do you need to when you can whack Wikipedia up on the screen and reel off some rather trite things that people have once said. I'm sort of tempted just to find out what platform this film is currently on, just to watch a few minutes of it. But I sort of think that it's probably going to be pretty bad, especially because the cast, the name of the 6 main characters and most minor characters were inspired by Beatles song titles and lyrics. So I give you Lucy,
of course,
Jude,
Yeah.
Do you want to have a guess at a few of the others?
Oh God, not really. No, no, not really.
Max.
Maxwell. Yeah, it's going to be somebody called Sadie, right?
Yeah, next one, Sadie. Yeah.
Oh,
We
good.
have Jojo
Prudence. Oh, Jojo. Okay, fair enough.
and Prudence.
Hey, God, that sounds awful.
And okay, so I'm just going to sort of scroll down a couple of these to the ones that sort of just grabbed my eye. We've got Bono as Dr. Robert
Oh, heart. Oh, God.
and Eddie Izzard as Mr. Kite.
Oh,
You see,
no.
on paper, it just suddenly becomes so bad that it's not going to be good, is it?
No, that doesn't seem likely. Another hasty Bing has informed me that it's available on Amazon for the grand total of £3.49.
Oh, surely if you've got Amazon Prime, it's got to be free.
Yeah. No. It's the Amazon Prime are charging for this nonsense.
Oh dear. Well, okay, that ruins this weekend's plan then, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, maybe we should throw it out to our wonderful listeners. Maybe if somebody has actually seen this movie and holds an opinion on it, they could get in touch and tell us whether it's as terrible as all those cliched character names suggest it's going to be.
You see, I would go back a stage. I wouldn't say if anyone's seen it. I would say if anyone's heard of this movie.
Yeah. If you've heard of this movie, let us know. And then if nobody replies, then we can assume nobody has heard of this movie, and therefore it's not just us being ignorant. The entire world has forgotten its existence.
And certainly to go back to the actual subject, it looks like from the position in the track listing as though it won't be long. It comes in the first act at least. So they don't appear to be doing the songs chronologically, because I mean it starts with Girl and then goes on to Helter Skelter, but you've got It Won't Be Long fairly early on, so I'm just going to start imagining the narrative there.
Helter Skelter's an interesting choice to be in the soundtrack.
Sung by Sadie.
Oh, good. I think that raises more questions than it probably answers. Which means we should probably loop back round to the song that we're meant to be talking about. But that also means that we're going to introduce. Can we call this a segment? Maybe that's overreaching it. We're going to introduce a thing.
A format point.
A format point. Oh, you're good at this. Yeah, God. Where were you when I was putting my other podcast together? All right, we're going to introduce a format point, which is we're going to start ranking songs. Because we want to. This comes from a suggestion from a listener, somebody called John, who has suggested that we do this partly as a way of keeping track of all the songs and partly as a way of actually bringing us back round to the conversation that we're supposed to be having rather than the one we've generally sort of meandered off into. We're going to do that. We'll go back. I'll put something up on the website for the podcast where we can enumerate all these songs, or there'll be a link to the blog somewhere. I'll find somewhere that these statistics can go up because we all love a pointless statistic, and we'll keep things ranked. We'll go back over the other songs that we've covered and just throw in numbers at some point. But from now on, we'll be doing that at the end of every episode. So let's do that.
Okay.
What would you give this song?
I have questions.
Questions,
on
ask
this
away.
Format point. Is it a joint score, or are we going to be listing these individually?
Oh, that's
averaging?
a good question. That's an excellent question.
And can we change our minds as well?
Oh God, yeah, of course. When has consistency ever been our watchword?
Okay. I mean, obviously you need to have a think about criteria, and if say it's out of 10, it might be worth having in mind, what you don't need to say, but what you think the 10, the pinnacle might be, and what you think the 0 might be. There is a song that we've mentioned a few times.
I was going to say, I bet I could guess what your 0 number is.
It might have a double O somewhere in it and a salutation, but okay.
Well, God, as you can tell, listeners, we're working this out live.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's appropriate because John, thank you, John, is correct that we basically we need something to end this, because like we're doing now, there is a tendency just to get lost in ridiculous discussions. And let's face it, one thing the early Beatles are really good at is ending songs. You know, it kind of goes back to that stage persona, doesn't it? Where you can imagine the way that It Won't Be Long ends with that sort of harmonisation. You can, as we I think we said on previous episodes, you can just imagine them going straight into the bow in front of the audience, thinking,
Absolutely.
"Hey, look, isn't that good? Look at us, we're really good. We finished. Bow, on with the next one." So this is our Beatles bow, which is my way of saying this is an above average Beatles track, man. And certainly, you know, I think I will come back to this at a later stage, but, you know, it's a 6 out of 10 because it's got something that's fresh and exciting. But it may turn out that when I start getting into the later albums, and I'm sort of already thinking ahead to, funny enough, song we briefly alluded to earlier, and Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite, that would strike me as being a very kind of mid-range Beatles song, you know, a 6 out of 10. And now I'm thinking, is this the same kind of 6 or a different kind of 6? Which is a basic way of saying this format point seems to have caused even more confusion and rambling. But hopefully we'll get that right at a later stage. So I'm just going to say 6 out of 10 and shut up.
Okay, excellent stuff. I am going to say that I think we should maintain individual scores.
Okay.
That's what I think we should do, rather than averaging. And if people want to average, or indeed if we want to average, then we can go ahead and do so.
Coincidentally, you're about to say 6 out of 10, aren't you?
I was exactly going to say that, yes. Of course. But I think that's probably a fair assessment. You know, it's a good song, it's punchy, it's an album opener, so it's got a very specific job to fulfill. Album openers, album closers always have slightly more pressure on them, or get interpreted in slightly different ways. I think it's very effective for that. I don't think it's probably quite as good a song as I Saw Her Standing There, but I would certainly say that it's for this period of time above average or slightly above average, and I would be happy giving it that ranking. 6 out of 10 from me.
And of course, worth throwing in the disclaimer that, again, I know we've said it before, that an above average Beatles song is still towards the top end of other people's catalogue. So, you know, you could sort of picture loads of other bands around this time doing this song and it being the best thing they've ever released.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and we'll keep to our relative what's the right expression? Our relative ranking. That's not easy to say. As just Beatles songs against Beatles songs. If we start trying to do it against Jerry and the Pacemakers, we'll be here until the crack of doom.
Not really. No, I think we'd be able to cope with comparing the Beatles to Jerry and the Pacemakers. That would be one of our shorter episodes.
Yeah, very better. Right, moving on. Okay, good. So we have a lovely new format point, and we have our first two rankings. I shall make sure that these are recorded somewhere, and like I say, I'll throw them up either onto the website or the blog or somewhere that it can be recorded and easily accessed. Good. We are done. So let's be done. That's probably a good thing. Right, lovely. Good. You can contact us by email, especially if you've seen Across the Universe. We'd really love to hear from you if you've seen Across the Universe. That would be just the most fabulous thing. So please get in touch with us at BeatlesStuffology@gmail.com. We're on Twitter at Beatles_ology, and you can find more of my writing at www.jgmacquarie.scot. Please like, rate, and review us on whatever podcatcher you're using so that more people can find the show. Next episode, we will be continuing with the Beatles. Oh, very, very elegant. Which means we're going to be covering All I've Got to Do. And as always, we hope you're going to join us for it. But until then, keep listening.